Most relationship conflicts don't end because someone solved the problem. They end because someone lost control of the emotional tone, and whoever controls the emotional tone controls what feels true. That's why so many men walk away from conversations feeling confused, guilty, or uncertain, even when they were the one who was hurt. The facts didn't change, the frame did. Emotion is powerful. It makes stories feel real even when they aren't. It makes weak explanations feel convincing. It turns uncertainty into self-doubt. When emotion enters a conversation without structure, truth becomes optional. You can ask, "What happened?" and receive a story. You can ask, "Why did you do that?" and receive an explanation. But stories and explanations are easy to shape when someone is trying to protect their image. This is why arguments often feel impossible to resolve. One person is reacting to feelings, the other is searching for clarity. They are speaking two different psychological languages. And when those languages clash, the person who stays emotional controls the outcome. But there is a way to shift that balance. You don't fight emotion with anger. You don't fight confusion with accusations. You fight it with structure. There are 6 calm, precise questions that quietly remove emotional fog. They don't attack, they don't accuse, they simply force reality back into the room. And when reality is present, manipulation disappears. Emotion is not the enemy. Unstructured emotion is. Most people don't lie by inventing facts. They lie by shaping perception. They choose what to emphasize, what to soften, and what to leave out entirely. That's why emotional storytelling is so effective. It doesn't need to be false. It only needs to be selective. When someone speaks emotionally, they control the atmosphere of the conversation. They decide what feels important, what feels justified, and what deserves sympathy. In that atmosphere, logic struggles to breathe. This is why asking open-ended questions like, "What happened?" rarely brings clarity. It invites interpretation, not truth. Truth has structure. Emotion does not. Real events have order. They unfold over time. They contain decisions, reactions, and consequences that connect logically. When those connections are missing, the story may still feel convincing, but it isn't complete. Emotion works by pulling your attention away from details and toward feelings. Once that happens, your mind stops verifying and starts reacting. Confusion replaces certainty, and doubt replaces clarity. This doesn't mean emotions are wrong. It means they cannot be the foundation of truth. Structure is the foundation. When you bring structure into a conversation, emotion no longer controls meaning. It becomes information instead of a weapon. And that is the moment when truth stops being something you guess and starts being something you can see. This is where every unclear story either becomes real or begins to fall apart. When you ask someone, "What happened?" you give them space to perform. They can choose which parts to highlight and which parts to quietly skip. Emotion fills the gaps, and the story feels complete even when it isn't. But when you ask someone to walk you through something step by step, you are no longer asking for a story. You are asking for memory. Real experiences have a natural order. One moment leads to another. There are pauses, decisions, reactions, and emotional shifts that make sense in sequence. When someone is telling the truth, that structure comes out naturally. They don't need to think about what happened next. They remember it. When someone is shaping the truth, the pattern changes. They often rush through the middle, jumping from the beginning straight to the ending. They avoid the transitions because those are the moments they didn't rehearse. Those gaps are where inconsistencies live. You may also notice hesitation, not confusion, construction. A brief pause while they decide what sounds safest to say next. That pause isn't about memory, it's about design. Pay attention to how emotion matches the timeline. Real memories come with emotional fingerprints. Nervous moments feel tense, awkward moments feel uncomfortable. Meaningful moments carry weight. When the emotion doesn't match the moment being described, something is missing. This question doesn't accuse, it doesn't pressure. It simply removes the freedom to improvise. And without that freedom, truth stands on its own. Most people think lies are hidden in events. They aren't. They are hidden in reasons. Someone can describe what happened with perfect detail and still be misleading. But the moment you ask why a certain choice was made, the foundation of the story is exposed. A person who is being honest usually answers this quickly. Their motive is tied to the memory. They don't have to invent it, they lived it. A person who is protecting something often hesitates, not because they don't remember, but because they are searching for the version of the reason that sounds safest. Listen carefully to the language. Phrases like, "It just happened," "I didn't think about it," "It wasn't a big deal." These are not explanations, they are exits. Every real action has a reason, emotional, impulsive, logical, or flawed, but still a reason. When someone avoids giving one, it usually means the real reason doesn't fit the image they want to maintain. You may also notice over-explaining, long emotional stories, unrelated details, or justifications that don't directly answer the question. This is not clarity, it is camouflage. This question gently brings accountability into the room. It asks the person to connect their action to their intention. When that connection is missing, something important is being left out. You don't have to accuse, you don't have to push. The absence of a real motive already tells you what you need to know. This question quietly changes everything. Most stories feel safe when they exist in isolation. As long as no one else is part of the picture, the person telling it controls how it is remembered. But the moment you introduce other people into the equation, the story has to align with reality. Someone who is telling the truth may be surprised by this question, but they are not afraid of it. Their experience exists outside of your conversation. It happened in the real world, with real witnesses. Someone who is hiding something often reacts very differently. You may see defensiveness, irritation, or a sudden shift in tone. The focus moves away from the event and toward you. Your trust, your motives, your behavior. That shift is important. It means the story no longer feels safe. When someone tries to shut this question down by saying things like, "Why are you involving other people?" or "This is unnecessary," what they are really saying is that outside perspectives threaten the version they gave you. Truth does not fear comparison. Only carefully edited stories do. You are not asking to create drama. You are asking to place the story next to reality. And reality is not emotional. It is consistent. This question doesn't trap anyone. It simply removes the protection that isolation provides. And when that protection is gone, what remains is either the truth or something that can no longer stand on its own. Feelings don't appear out of nowhere. Real emotions have a history. They build, shift, soften, intensify, and leave traces in behavior long before they are spoken out loud. When someone is telling the truth about how they feel, they can usually describe that emotional journey, even if it wasn't clear or comfortable at the time. When emotions are created for convenience, that history is missing. This is why this question is so powerful. It forces feelings to prove they existed before they became useful. A person who is being honest may not remember exact dates, but they can describe the process. They remember moments that changed things. They remember doubts, inner conflict, or the gradual shift in how they felt. A person who is reshaping the past often becomes vague. You'll hear answers like, "Oh, for a while," or "It just built up." Those aren't timelines. They are placeholders. Watch for mismatches between words and behavior. If someone claims they felt distant for months, but their actions were affectionate, consistent, and engaged, the story doesn't align. Real emotions leak into actions. Invented emotions do not. You may also hear subtle revisions as they speak, a timeline that quietly shifts mid-sentence, a feeling that moves backward or forward in time once it starts to sound unrealistic. These aren't memories adjusting. They are narratives being repaired. This question doesn't demand proof. It simply asks emotions to have a past. And when they don't, the truth becomes much easier to see. This question reveals something deeper than the event itself. It reveals intention. When someone is honest, they usually haven't spent much time imagining your reaction. They told the truth because it was true, not because it produced a specific outcome. But when someone is shaping a story, they almost always have a prediction in mind. They imagine how you will feel, what you will say, and how they need you to respond for the situation to stay under control. That prediction guides what they choose to reveal and what they leave out. When you ask this question, you are no longer focused on what happened. You are focused on what they expected to happen. This often creates discomfort, not because the question is unfair, but because it exposes the strategy behind the story. You may see irritation, deflection, or a sudden shift toward criticizing your past reactions. That is not random. It is an attempt to redirect attention away from their expectations and back onto you. If someone believed you would become angry, guilty, or insecure, and they shaped their story around that belief, it means the story was never neutral. It was designed. This doesn't mean someone is malicious. It means they were trying to manage the outcome. And when you see the outcome they were aiming for, you understand far more than any explanation could ever tell you. This question doesn't accuse, it reveals. And what it reveals is the emotional blueprint behind the words. This is the question that quietly closes every escape route. Most people don't tell complete lies. They tell edited truths, versions of events where the uncomfortable parts are softened, delayed, or removed entirely. That editing allows them to keep control of the narrative while still appearing honest. This question disrupts that process. When you ask if anything was left out, you are no longer challenging what was said. You are inviting the person to examine their own story. Someone who is being truthful usually answers quickly. They don't have to scan their memory for missing pieces because they already shared what matters. Someone who is protecting something often becomes noticeably still. Their attention turns inward. They are no longer talking to you. They are reviewing the version they just gave. That pause is not about remembering, it is about deciding. You may notice small adjustments, extra details, clarifications that weren't necessary before, additions that quietly close gaps you didn't even point out. This is not openness, it is repair. Silence is powerful here. Don't rush to fill it. When someone has something they didn't want to say, stillness makes it harder to keep hidden. This question doesn't force a confession. It creates the conditions where honesty becomes easier than maintaining the edit. And in that moment, the truth often reveals itself on its own. This isn't about controlling anyone. It's about controlling the frame of the conversation. Most people get lost in arguments because they try to fight emotion with more emotion. They raise their voice, repeat themselves, or defend their intentions. That never brings clarity. It only creates noise. What brings clarity is structure. When you ask the right questions, you don't need to accuse, pressure, or chase the truth. You simply remove the places where confusion and misdirection hide. Truth does not fear calm questions. Only carefully shaped stories do. If someone is being honest, these 6 questions feel grounding. They make the conversation clearer and safer. But when someone reacts strongly to them, avoids them, or tries to turn the focus back onto you, that reaction is information. You don't have to interpret it. You don't have to argue about it. You simply observe it. That's where real confidence comes from. Not from controlling others, but from understanding what is happening in front of you. When you move through conversations with clarity, you stop feeling uncertain. You stop second-guessing yourself. And you stop giving away your emotional stability to stories that don't deserve it. Clarity is not aggressive. Clarity is powerful. And once you have it, everything changes.